We want to tell you the story now about a little girl who never had a chance to grow up. She was murdered 25 years ago in New Jersey. This is also the story of her mother, who is still fighting for justice and trying to protect other children as well. Here's NBC's Rahema Ellis.
7-year-old Joan D'Alessandro just beginning to blossom.
My daughter was this wonderful, wonderful little bubbly, spunky little special person.
A top student in her second grade class, Joan loved ballet, piano, and dolls.
She was so beautiful. I mean, she had reddish blonde hair, blue eyes, just beautiful features.
And she loved being a Brownie Scout. The last time her mother saw her alive, Joan was headed to deliver Girl Scout cookies to a neighbor.
I see her going down, popping her little ponytail, so proud, just taking her little box.
The neighbor, 26-year-old Joseph McGowan, a high school science teacher, lured Joan into his house and killed her. In 1974, McGowan was sent to prison for murder. Ever since, Joan's mother has fought to keep him there.
I have chosen not to sit back in my grief.
At present, Joan's killer is eligible for parole again.
25 years after the crime, family and friends still rally to support Rosemarie D'Alessandro's fight to block yet another parole appeal by McGowan. One friend, former prosecutor Larry McClure, handled the case.
It was a tragedy that this county and the people in this county and probably beyond this county felt the impact of, and still do.
McClure remembers the crime like it was yesterday.
Joseph McGowan assaulted her sexually. He strangled her. And then at a later point in time, when there was still some movement, he suffocated and strangled her a second time.
After 3 days of helping to search for Joan, McGowan confessed, and on Easter Sunday, he led police to the wooded area where he dumped her body. He was sentenced to life in prison, the maximum sentence at that time. D'Alessandro thought life meant no possibility of parole. She was wrong.
I did not realize how short, what it really meant. That it was going to be just 14 years, and after that, there would be appeals for the rest of his life. So I was kind of naive with it.
Since McGowan was convicted, he's had 2 parole hearings. Each one caused agony for Joan D'Alessandro's family, afraid a child murderer could walk away from here a free man. In 1987 and in 1994, D'Alessandro pleaded with the parole board to remember her little girl.
That's when I really relive it, because the way the law is right now, that is what they make victims go through. And in reliving it, it's suffering. I mean, it's painful.
Both times, the parole board turned McGowan down, saying in '94 that he had, quote, not achieved his rehabilitative potential. But this past spring, the New Jersey State Appeals Court ruled that McGowan, at 51, a man who spent most of his adult life in prison, should get a new parole hearing. The court said lack of rehabilitation cannot be grounds for refusing parole, that the board should only have considered whether McGowan was likely to break the law again. The man in charge of that 1994 parole hearing says that was a consideration.
And I remember the direct question. I said, come tell us now for the first time today that when she knocked on that doorbell, she was dead. And he said, yeah, that's right. 20 years later, 20 years it took him to get to that point. That's part of the reason why we felt he was a risk.
John Jay College law professor Michael Jacobson says the court may be hung up on semantics.
Any parole board who thinks that someone's going to reoffend will not put that person out, and to me, the reason they're not putting him out is because they think he's not rehabilitated. Whether they use the words or not is sort of immaterial.
Let the judges know that we don't want to see Joseph McGowan on the street ever.
D'Alessandro turned anger over McGowan's possibility of parole into action. She campaigned relentlessly to toughen parole laws in New Jersey.
I did not want another mother to have to go through it. And then I did want my daughter's life and suffering to mean something to make the world better.
After 3 years of a grassroots effort, New Jersey's Governor Christie Whitman signed Joan's Law. From now on, child killers sentenced to life get life, with no possibility of parole.
The criminal will die in prison. There will be no more appeals.
But it's not retroactive. It will not affect McGowan, whose new parole hearing is scheduled for this month. But D'Alessandro's work isn't finished yet. She's working to make Joan's Law a federal law that will someday protect children from every state.
How are you doing? Are you doing okay today?
She can still hear her daughter's voice on a tape of Christmas songs made 4 months before she was murdered. A chilling reminder of a sparkling little girl and why one mother fights so hard to protect other children.
She is the heroine. She is who is changing so many things to make this world better. And I know she is happy about that.
For today, Rahema Ellis, NBC News, Hillsdale, New Jersey.
A few notes now. Joseph McGowan refused to be interviewed for this story, nor would he allow his attorney to speak on camera. Rosemarie D'Alessandro will give her victim's input to the New Jersey Parole Board this morning. Their decision is expected soon. It is 7:50. This is Today on NBC.